Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolf Pit. Today we're making pulled pork, and this isn't going to be your average store-bought pork we bought at the grocery store. I haven't been happy with store-bought pork in a long time. To the point, I rarely eat pork, which is sad, because I love good pork. Keyword there is good. Store-bought pork is entirely too lean, and without fat, there's no moisture or flavor. And even when it does have fat, there's not a whole lot of flavor. And then to make up for the lack of moisture and flavor, the mass pork producers enhance almost all the pork you buy in a grocery store. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with enhanced pork, other than it being, well, enhanced. Lately, I've been sticking with only local pork and free-range, all-natural pork that's humanely raised and not mass-produced. If I heard someone say what I just said a few years ago, I would have laughed and walked away, with a snarky remark like pork is pork, and that would have made me sound like an idiot because pork is not pork. Well, it is pork, just all pork's not created equal. There's a huge difference when pork, or any other meat for that matter, is mass-produced and pork that's not mass-produced and fed quality food. You can definitely see and taste the difference, and there's no comparison between the two. So today, I'm trying a boneless 8-pound free-range, naturally raised Iowa pork butt. And this is not a sponsored video, but I will leave a link in the description to where I got it from. Now I'm going to warn you now, this pork and all other good quality pork is going to cost about 8 times as much as pork you buy in the grocery store. For example, you can get a pork butt from the grocery store for about 99 cents a pound, sometimes cheaper, which for an 8-pound butt will cost $7.92, versus the $64.95 or $8.19 a pound for the butt we're cooking today. Now go ahead and pick your jaw up off the ground, and don't close the video and say that's an absurd price. Years ago, I would have agreed with you. $8.19 a pound for a pork shoulder, there wouldn't have been a chance I would have paid that much. But since I've been eating better pork, I understand the price difference, and I would highly recommend you splurge one time and try it. And that way you can be the judge if it's worth it or not. Alright, so enough talk, let's get this butt out of the cryovac. This butt is boned and netted. Now I usually don't like to cook boneless butts, but this is the only way they have them. And if you're concerned about your meat sticking to the netting and ruining your bark, you can brush some vinegar over the netting, which will help prevent the netting from sticking to your meat. But since we're making pulled pork and pulling the meat, if the netting does pull the bark off, we can just mix it in with the meat. So I didn't have any vinegar, so we just seasoned the pork as is with kosher salt and black pepper. Now let that sit there for a minute, and let's go get our grill fired up. And for today's cook, I'm using my Gorilla Grill's OG pellet cooker. We're using hickory pellets and cooking at 250 degrees. Once your grill or smoker is up to temperature, add your butt. Well, the pork shoulder, not your butt. Then insert your meat probe, if you're using one. Then close the OG, or the grill of your choice, and let the butt cook at 250 degrees. After cooking for an hour at 250 degrees, give the pork a spritz of apple juice. And then close the lid and let it cook for another hour. Then continue this process until you get the bark and color you want, like we have here at the 6-hour mark. And if you wanted to know, after 6 hours, the internal temperature was at 162 degrees. Now once it has the color and bark you want, wrap it up in foil and finish it off in the smoker or the oven. And it doesn't matter which one you use, because once it's foiled, there's no benefit of it being on your smoker. After 2.5 hours in a 250 degree oven, for a total cook time of 8.5 hours, our pork is tender with an internal temperature of 192. After resting for a half hour, it was time to remove the netting, pull the pork, and most importantly, eat. Using a knife or scissors, start cutting off the netting. And you'll see that some of the meat and fat stuck to it and pulled some of the bark off. But like I said before, we're going to mix it back in with the meat anyway. Once the netting is removed, pull your pork. And this pork speaks for itself and how moist and tender it is. We got a really nice smoke ring throughout the roast, and the meat simply looked magnificent. Once the pork is pulled, season to taste. And I'd be lynched in my house if I made pulled pork without adding some Wolfe rub. Once all your meat is mixed up and seasoned the way you like, it's time to make a sandwich. And today we're just using a basic roll, so pile on as much or as little pork as you like. And being from North Carolina, I like to add some Texas Pete. And of course some slaw. So Mrs. Wolfe put it all together and gave it a big smash. And then we both took a bite. And it was delicious. It had a nice, clean, succulent flavor and sweetness to it. The texture was phenomenal. People use the term like butter when describing the texture and tenderness of meat. Maybe too often, but who am I to judge? But I kid you not, it really was like butter. No teeth or dentures required. I know when I was describing the flavor of the pork, I used the word clean, which is what immediately came to mind. Pure probably would have been a better word to use, but the taste and the texture really reminded me of the suckling pig I did. I couldn't have been happier with how this Iowa pork turned out. I know it's pricey, and it's not the pork you want to serve a big crowd unless you have more money than brains, but splurge every once in a while and try meats from smaller producers, especially local farmers and butchers, and treat yourself and your family. Thank you all very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, and share it with your family and friends, and I'll see you soon.